Well, we are live. Let me make sure my microphone is set. Sorry about the delay, everybody. This is Dr. Josh, and we are doing lesson 5, a review of the Sumerian grammar. Oh, let me turn my volume down here. So I have kind of a weird setup here. Megan is watching in the other room. I thought I turned the volume down. Why does it not go down? Okay, sorry. So Megan's watching in the other room. She's going to yell if there are questions that I don't see. And I'm going to go through the PowerPoint first for lesson 5. If you are just joining us, by the way, what we're doing is Sumerian grammar. We have videos up. This is our 5th lesson. So we have the first 4 lessons with exercises and vocabulary and signs. And then I did a review like this of lessons 1 through 4, I think maybe 2 weeks ago. That's up on the site on the playlist. But today what I just want to do is walk everybody through lesson 5. And then I downloaded a new app on my iPad. It's specifically a whiteboard, so I can use my pencil and draw on it. And hopefully it'll work out well. And we'll go through the exercises and I'll kind of, show you some things. And please, if you have any questions, put them in the side chat. And I'm sorry if I've got it right here. So if I don't see it immediately again, either Oliver or Megan will yell out to me that there's a question in there. So, hey, frustrated atheist. So let's get going. I am going to try to share my screen. It's right there. I want to share that. Yes, very good. Is that going to work? Oh, wait, you know what? I don't remember this working last time. But that looks like it's working. So, slideshow, play from start. Let's see if that works. For some reason, I remember there being a problem with this last time. Yes, see, there's the problem. Okay, I did it the wrong way. Let's do a different screen share. Just screen share the whole desktop. How's that? Yep. Okay. Oops. There we go. Beautiful. Okay. Sorry about that. Learning to read Sumerian, lesson 5. Today we are moving into, with this lesson, we're moving into some of the details of how verbs are formed. Particularly, we're looking at tenses. So past and present tense, what does that mean? Are those good words to use? And then how are they formed? So we will look at what is verbal inflection. And Megan made me this amazing cup of coffee, so I'm drinking it. That was a weird thing to say. Anyway, what is verbal inflection? What are the past and present tenses? And should we use those terms? So I say past and present tense, sort of. In some of these ancient languages, it's not so much about past and present as it is about aspect. But we'll talk about that when we get there a little bit. But we do want to keep things simple. So we're going to do that. And then finally, I'll show you what the 2 basic types of Sumerian verbs are. They're called Hum2 and Maru. So, what is verbal inflection? Verbal inflection is something that happens in languages that allows the person writing to change the basic form of the verb, to alter it in a way that changes its meaning. Instead of making up new verbs for the past tense, a new verb that means the same thing for the present tense, and so on, they will just change the way that they write the actual verb. So let's take an example. In English, the English verb jump, instead of changing the actual verb jump to something else like hola to mean the past tense, that was a really weird example. I don't know what hola is. It's probably Swahili or something. Anyway, they would say to jump for the infinitive. So they add to the front of it to form the infinitive. You would say that he jumps or she is jumping for the present tense. You would add ed for the past tense, so jumped. And then finally, for the future, will jump, I will jump, as opposed to, well, yeah, so that's how they inflect it. They inflect it by adding things to the beginning, to the end. And this changes. You can see, though, jump is in the middle of all of that, right? Jump, 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 jump. It all stays the same. They just inflect around it. They change around it. But some English verbs do it a little differently. So, for example, the English verb sit, similar in the infinitive, to sit, same in the present, he sits or he is sitting, but in the past, he sat. So if you notice, obviously this is all common sense to probably all of you listening, but it's changing the internal structure of the verbal form itself. So the I is going to an A, so that it changes the actual shape of the verbal form itself. So to fall, fell, those sorts of things. It changes the internal structure. That's important because Sumerian does this as well. It adds things to the beginning, it adds things to the end, but in some forms, it'll actually change the way the verb itself is formed, the way it looks. Future, he will sit. Okay. In Sumerian, there are a couple of ways in which the verb can be inflected. It can be formed or changed in order to change its tense. So those two ways are for the past tense. They call it the Hum2, and these are Sumerian words. I mean, these are words that come out of ancient Mesopotamia. That this is what they called them. So Hum2 and Maru. Maru is the present future. So I can hear Oliver crying in the background. Actually, I can hear my own voice in the background, which is an interesting thing. Anyway, I have a weird sounding voice, but all of you knew that already. All right. Past and present tense. So are these good words to use? Well, they are going to be for us because there's a more specific way to say it. A more precise is the word I'm looking for. Way to describe the way they form things in action that is completed or not complete, but we're not going to deal with all of that. We're not going to bother with that. This is an introduction to Sumerian, so we're going to keep things very simple, but so that you're aware of it. Using the word tense with some of these ancient languages is tricky, right? Really, what we probably should be thinking in terms of is complete or incomplete action. If you've ever taken Greek, you'll be familiar with this sort of thing: action that has been completed or action that is yet to be completed. So what we're calling the past tense would be completed action, action that's been done. Incomplete action would be action that's either ongoing or will be done. It's not complete yet. There are other words, perfective and imperfective, but you know what? For simplicity's sake, it works in most of the cases here. Let's just call them past and present. So the Hum2 is the past, the Maru is the present. And here's an example. The verb nyar. Nyar means to put or to place or to set something. Mu'un nyar, that's the past tense. That's the Hum2 form. It means he set or she set. And mu'un nyatu nyatu, that is the Maru form, and it is the present future tense. And it would be either he sets or he will set. And we're going to get into the differences between those two things and the logic behind the way that those things are structured. But nonetheless, those are the two tenses in Sumerian. Okay, let's talk about Hum2. So Hum2 is the regular or the basic form of the verb. It's the one that's not inflected as much, I guess. It's usually in the past tense, as we've described. So we have verbs like do three, to build. Well, mu'un, do three, is he built. Notice do three, it stays the same. La2 means to stretch or to extend or to hang. Mu'un la2 would be he extended. Hum2 to give. Mu'un Hum2, he gave. And of course, each of these could be she gave as well. Dim2 to form or to fashion. Mu'un Dim2 would be he formed or she formed, fashioned. The thing that you need to key in on, one of the things that I'd like you to key in on, and we'll talk about this in either the next lesson or the lesson after. By the way, I calculated, it looks like we have maybe 6 or 7 lessons left before we finish out the basics of learning to read Sumerian. So take heart, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. But that N before the verbal base, before the do 3 or the law 2 or the shum 2, that N is the way that the Hum2 marks the subject of the sentence or the agent of the sentence. Okay. So that N represents the he or the she. It's the third person animate agent, the animate subject. We'll talk about that in a little more detail later, but I just want you to be aware of it. If there's an N that appears before the verbal base, start thinking that's probably the subject of the sentence or the agent of the sentence. Okay? We're going to see what the Maru looks like here in just a second. Now, in the Maru, the modified form of the verb, it's usually the present or the future tense. And there are 3 ways that it can be formed. So the Hum2 was pretty simple. It was just the basic form. Often you'll just put an N before the verbal base. You can have some modifications after. We'll talk about those later, but basically it's just that. Maru, however, can form the present and the future. They can form in 3 different ways. The most basic, I suppose, the easiest to recognize maybe, is putting an E after the verbal base. So that same verb, latu, to extend. If you have mu, latu, that's he or she will extend. Bod means to open. Mu bod he will open, or he is opening. Dim2 to form or to fashion. Mu dim2 he will form. But notice in each of these, the E. That E is marking the Hum2 third person. This is telling you that it's a Maru verb. So this is the first way that they do it. The second way that they do it is they'll double the verbal base. So some Maru verbs are formed not by adding an E, but by doubling the verbal base. So in the Hum2, mu'un gi4, he returned. Notice the N before the verbal base. It's just one gi4 there. So that's Hum2, he returned. But mu gi4, they double the gi4, he will return, or he is returning. So that's the difference. You see, they just double the verbal base. There are some Maru verbs that will change the form of the verbal base when they double, specifically for the Maru. So the verb nyar in the Hum2 is mu'un yar. It stays nyar just like that. He set. But when that verbal base reduplicates or doubles in the Maru stem, it changes from nyar to nyatu, as we saw in one of the earlier slides. So mu nya, they drop the R off of nyar and reduplicate nyatu. That is specifically a Hum2 verbal base. In other words, we're going to see in a couple of slides, and if you've done this lesson already, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's right, frustrated atheist. Past tense to future tense. Could be the present tense as well, like he is looking or he is returning or something. But yeah, it's present. I mean, a past versus present / future. But there are times that the Hum2 base will double. So the Maru base is the one that normally doubles. Sometimes the Hum2 base will double. But it will maintain. Where's my mouse here? This verbal base nyar will stay the same when it reduplicates in the Hum2. So if this were what they call Hum2 reduplication or free reduplication, this would be mu'un nyar nyar as opposed to nyatu nyatu. So if you saw mu'un nyar nyar, you would know that's Hum2 reduplication. If you saw mu nyatu nyatu, you would know it's Maru. It had to be because the verbal base changed for the Maru. Okay, that's probably a little more than you need to know at the moment, but I want you to be just generally aware of that. Sometimes the Hum2 verb verbal base can double as well. So you can add an E to form the Maru. You can double the verbal base to form the Maru. And you can also change the actual form, like sit to sat, to form the Maru. So some verbs change their form completely in the Maru. Now here I'm only going to deal with the singular forms. So Sumerian has a Hum2 singular, a Maru singular, a Hum2 plural, and a Maru plural. Right? I'm only going to deal with the singular here. It's far more common, and this is an introductory lesson, so I'm trying to keep things simple so that you can get the basic idea. Sorry, I was just reading one of the comments there. I'm really not good at reading comments and not losing my train of thought. Sorry, everybody. So, right, what was I saying? Oh, so I'm only dealing with the singular here. So the verb to say or to speak for my old time students here, those that have been doing all the lessons, you probably know automatically, he's talking about do 11. The Hum2 is do 11. So if you saw mu'un do 11, it'd be he spoke, he said. But in the Maru, it's A. They change it just to the letter E. So if you had, I don't know, mu'un A or muna A, you would have the Maru singular. They just changed the verbal base completely. There's no extra E put on it. There's no reduplication. There's no there's only one E. There aren't two E's. They just completely change the verbal base. It's similar to you would say jump, jumped for the past, but you wouldn't say sit, satted. You wouldn't change it to sat and then put an ed on it. You do one or the other. Well, that's what they're doing here. You either put an E on it, you reduplicate it, usually, or you change the actual shape of the verbal base itself. To carry or to bring is the verb des6 in the Hum2. In the Maru, it's tum2 or tum3, but it's the sound tum. So they changed des6 to tum2 or tum3. That's how they do it. They change the form to form the Maru. To go or to walk, very common verb. Nyen in the Hum2. In the Maru, it's do. So if they say mu do, he walked. He will walk, or he is walking. Right? It's changing it to the present future, the Maru form. So Hum2 is past, Maru is present future, and you can either put an E on the end to form the Maru. You can double the verbal base to form the Maru, or they will completely change the shape of the verbal base in order to form the Maru. These aren't things that you need to like commit to memory in the sense that you have to remember all the little nuances of this. You need to be aware of it. And probably the best thing to do is I'm starting to write my grammar this weekend, my Sumerian grammar. I've got the outline together, and I'll write that hopefully over the next couple of months. And hopefully, what you'll have is you'll sit down with a text and you'll say, "Oh man, I see an e on the end of this verbal form. I remember that's something about changing the verb. What is it?" And you'll flip back into my grammar or into whatever grammar that you're using. And you go, "Oh, yeah, an E on the end. That's how they form the Maru. That's the present future." And then you'll translate it. Eventually, you'll just remember all this stuff if you do Sumerian long enough. But, for now, it's just be aware of these things. Go back through the lesson a number of times. Just familiarize yourself with it. And it'll make translation a lot easier. All right, one last thing before we go through the exercises, and that is Hum2 Reduplication. We talked about this very briefly, and it has you can duplicate the Hum2 verbal base. Sometimes when the Hum2 verb doubles, it will either indicate one, the plurality of a subject or an object. Now, if you think about some of the earlier lessons, I think actually lesson 1 talks about how you form plurals. Sometimes you form plurals by doubling the noun. So lougle would be king, lougal would be kings, kor would be land or mountain, kor would be all the mountains or the mountains plural, right? So doubling is one of the ways that they do this. So it's not that surprising that they would double a verbal base in order to show plurality. We'll talk about the difference between the subject and the object and how to tell and in a future lesson that's a little more advanced. But that's one of the things that it can mean. It can also represent intensity. So if any of you have taken Hebrew before, there is what they call the D stem or a PL. The PL form it's like a intensity. So if in the basic stem, the regular stem, the word means to break, if they put it in the PL stem or the D stem, it'll mean to shatter or to smash, because it's duplicating or it's intensifying with its duplication. So but again, you don't have to be concerned with the nuances of the meaning here. I just want you to be aware that when you see reduplication, you should first think Maru, right? You should first think Maru, but be aware that it's possible that it could be Hum2 reduplication, because Hum2 verbs will also reduplicate. So an example of this here would be mu'un yar nyar. He set them, the object, the plural object. Now, how do we know that this is not Maru reduplication? I promise I won't sit here and wait for the answer. I just want you to think about it for a second. We know that the verb nyar is the Hum2 form. And when it goes into the Maru, it switches from nyar to nyatu. And then it reduplicates nyatu, nyatu. So if this were a Maru form, it would be mu'un nyatu nyatu, not mu'un yar nyar. So we can know that this is Hum2 reduplication. Okay, before I move on to the vocabulary, Megan, have there been any questions in the chat that I've missed? Or do you guys have any questions that you want me to clarify before I go on? Or maybe you can be thinking about them if you haven't had any in the live chat yet. Maybe you can be thinking about them, and I'll go through while I go through the vocabulary, you can type them in. And I guess I can open this up. I was going to say, if there were someone watching that were up on the exercises and wanted to come in and come in and go through the exercises. You know what? Well, maybe we'll do that at a later time. Give everybody a chance to kind of work through these things. But if you have any questions, please put them in the side chat there. Okay, let's go through the vocabulary. La-tu means to extend or to hang. Ak means to do or to make. Bod is to open. Gi-for is to turn or to return. Des-6 is to bring or to carry. And of course, Des-6 changes to Tum-2 or Tum-3 when it forms its Maru. Nyeshtug-2 is ear or wisdom. So you'll see rulers are sometimes called those that are broad of ear or wide-eared, and it doesn't mean that they look like Dumbo or something. It carries the idea there's a lot of space in between their ears, so they're very wise. They're very intelligent. So anyway, Mu-tu is to grow. Ma-tu is boat or ship. Song-il-tu is a compound verb. Song is head. Il-tu is to raise up. So to lift up the head or to raise up the head. Song-gid-tu is to become angry. So song means head, and gid-tu means to become long or to stretch out. So if you stretch out the head, if you think about a forehead, if your forehead becomes stretched out or long, it means that you're angry. Gid-tu, of course, is to become long. Temen is a foundation. Tud is to give birth. Tug-tu is clothing. Na-for is a stone, and both tug-tu and na-for are used as determinatives. So they indicate that something, a noun that comes alongside it is an article of clothing or a stone. And then finally, igi, nyar, another compound verb, means to look at. Okay. Actually, I'm going to skip through the exercises really quickly, and we'll come back to them because I want to show you the Kanaya Forms signs. So if you look at these, I've had several comments on the Kanaya Forms signs. I'm definitely not an artist. I'm actually going to have Megan, if she's volunteered, to start drawing these, and I think she does a much better job than I do. But I'm drawing the old Babylonian forms, the forms from the early second millennium. You can go and get other sign forms. The signs change slightly over time. Sometimes by the time they get to the first millennium, they change pretty significantly. But the new sign is a straight horizontal, then one that comes down, and then one that goes back up. That's what that's supposed to represent. Sheish, you will have a line like this, some diagonal wedges here and diagonal wedges here. This means brother. Ab is also the sign for Esh3, which is a shrine. You can kind of see the layout of a building here if you're looking at it from the top. But it widens out here like this at the end. Anyway, I guess we don't have to go through each of these, but this is the T sign, horizontal, this little curved thing, which is called a Winkelhaken, then a vertical down, then another horizontal, then another Winkelhaken. Anyway, but you can see the difference between the re here, even though it has a lot of the same signs or the same wedges, they're in a different pattern. This is the gi sign. This is the nam sign. And then finally, this is the mush 3 sign. And if you see that star sign before it, the thing that looks like a star, that's the dinger sign. And dinger mush 3 is Inanna, the goddess Inanna. So, okay. If there aren't any questions, I'm going to stop. Oh, no, wait, I don't want to stop. I want to start this screen share. Okay. Now, there it is. This guy. Okay. So, can I make this bigger? I wonder if there's a way to, hang on a second, everybody. Oops. Is there a way to, no, there's not. Okay. This isn't really going to work, is it? Sorry. Let's do this differently. All right, let me try to do this a different way. Movie recording, will that work? Just trying to fill the screen up. How's that going to work? Beautiful. Okay, that's better. So let's take a look at the exercises. We'll go through them in a little bit of detail. I downloaded this new app today for my iPad, and I think it's actually going to come in really handy when I teach these classes. So, number 1, lougle, A2, mu, do 3. So, how would we go about translating this? Well, if you think about, I wonder if there's a way that I can, probably isn't, is there? Okay. If we think about the way this sentence is set up, we see an E here. And if you remember from one of the earlier lessons, an E on the end of a noun, which we have here, the word lougle, which means king, an E can mark the subject of a transitive verb, the subject of a verb that's getting ready to do something. It's getting ready to act on something else, right? So they call that the agent in Sumerian. So this is called the ergative marker. So the ergative tells you that this is the agent. Okay? So if you're thinking about who's getting ready to do the action in the sentence, it's the king. The king's getting ready to act, right? Now we have A2. What is A2? Does anybody remember? I know everybody just shouted it out, I'm sure, at your computer. You're like, oh, it's house or temple. That's right. House. Now, so we've got the king, house. We know the king is the agent or the subject of the sentence. So he's the agent or the subject of a transitive verb. We know now mu'un is the beginning of a verb. We've heard it about 800,000 times now. So that means do 3 is our verbal base, and do 3 means to build. Well, we have an N before the verbal base, and particularly in this lesson, the N before the verbal base means Hum2, third animate singular. So he built. So then we would say the king, ergative, subject of the sentence, built. Here, we know that's Hum2, the house. The king built, I can't spell, the house. That's how you would translate that sentence. Okay? So pretty straightforward. Hopefully, at least somewhat straightforward. What did I do there? Okay, there's my eraser. Let's go on to number 2. What questions do you have? God, good grief. It's like you get to the end of the page and it doesn't like you anymore. What questions do you have about how that was translated? We won't take that long with each of these, but I wanted to go through the, oh, good grief. I guess if you pick up your pen. That's what happens. Okay, the second one. Tinghir. I don't know why this thing's going so slowly now. Hum2. Mu. Un. Hum2. Okay. I'm going to restart this program. Hang on just a second, because it's, for some reason, acting really slowly. It's probably not going to do anything, is it? Okay. So tinghir re. There's your ergative marker again, because tinghir is going to be the subject of this sentence, or the agent of this sentence. So there's your ergative marker. So Hum2 is your verb. You can see the mu'un here. The N before the verbal base probably indicates another Hum2. Hum2 means to give. Tinghir means God. So the God gave. Neshtug2 is wisdom. To somebody, probably. But the God gave wisdom. Okay? All right. Ah. Lord have mercy. Sorry, I promised to get better at this. It's the first time using this program. All right, let's skip down, maybe do another one. Oh, yeah, that's good. So number 4. Oh, too thick. Number 4. Nin. That is not an N. Wow, that's even less of an N. Uru. She3. Boy, this thing is just... hang on. Oh, much better. Okay. Uru She3. Ba Gi4. Okay. Nin here does not have an E. Now, we remember that E is the ergative marker, right? And the ergative marker marks the agent, right? The agent of a sentence. So let's just define it again really quick. What's the difference between an agent and a subject? Well, the subject of a sentence, we know what that is, right? Subject is the thing that acts in an intransitive verb, right? So intransitive means there's no object being acted upon. So Johnny swims, Johnny runs, Johnny walks. None of those things have an object, a direct object, we call it in English, being acted upon. However, in the sentence, Johnny hit the ball, hit is a transitive. Oh, question from Mrs. Snarky. Thank you, sweetheart. So the subject is not acting, an acting agent. That's right. Is that the question? Yeah, I think it is. Right. So the difference is, and we'll talk about this actually in probably the more advanced Sumerian, but in English, we treat the subject of a transitive sentence and an intransitive sentence in the exact same way. We don't mark it any differently. Johnny hit the ball. Johnny walks. Johnny stays exactly the same. There's no different form. But in Sumerian, they do that differently. So if we were to say Johnny walks, they would mark it with, oops, let me do it this way. They would mark it with, and forgive me for calling it this, a 0, right? There's no mark. They mark it with nothing. They don't identify it in any way. However, if you said Johnny built the house, so now you have a verb that has an object, they would mark this with an E. So anytime there's an object that the verb is acting upon, that the subject is acting upon, they mark that with an E. Built is a transitive verb. Walks is an intransitive verb, right? Walks requires there's no object there. So if there's no object, there's no mark. If there's an object, there's a mark. I hope that makes sense. Oh, okay, she says it does. So that's what matters. So gi4, to turn or to return. Intransitive or transitive? Intransitive. That's right. So there's no mark. So nin means lady. The lady returned ba gi4. What would it be if it were in the Maru? We've seen it. There'd be another gi4 there, right? It would reduplicate. But because there's not, the lady returned. Sheh3 is to or toward. And if you go back to our lesson on the prepositions, they attach prepositions to the end of a noun. So the noun uru means city. This means to. So they would say to the city. So the lady returned to the city. And there you go. Boy, this would be really interesting, a really interesting screen to look at after the fact. All right. Looks like a bunch of ink exploded on the page. Bob Ross would not be pleased. Found out this week that Bob Ross was in the Air Force for 20 years, and he was a drill instructor, which I think is funny. That's not peer-reviewed or anything, but I think I read it in a reputable magazine. Anyway, okay. Let's do one more, and then I feel like we'll have done pretty well here. So number 5, unless you guys want me to do other ones. Oh man, it's slowing down again. Let me reset it. Number 5, oops. N, A2, Sheh3, Ba, gi4, gi4. Okay. Just a little bit of skylight blue. So if we were coming at this sentence, we would say, all right, N means like Lord. A2 means house, right? Or temple. Sheh3 is to, toward. Ba, this is a conjugation prefix. We'll talk about these later. And then here's our verbal base. Gi4 is to return. So how would we translate this sentence? Well, we look And we know that gi4 is intransitive. So we would expect a 0 mark here, right? On Lord. So the Lord is the subject of an intransitive verb. And the gi4 is not written once, it's written twice. So this, we want to start thinking Maru. So will return. Let's try that. The Lord will return to the temple, the house. And there you go. Not terribly complicated. I mean, well, all right, I'm looking at the screen again. Oh yeah, it's okay. It's a little complicated. But once you sort of get the hang of this, your eye will start to look for the subject or the agent of the sentence. It will look at the verb, and then it will look at everything in between. That's generally what your eye will do. Of course, not every Sumerian sentence is constructed that way, and these things can get very complicated. But this is sort of how you have to look at these clauses, look at these parts of the sentence. Okay, I feel like we've done pretty well here. We're coming up on an hour, and that's right. The Lord, Yoda says, the Lord to the temple will return. That's true. All right. So do you guys want me to do more exercises, or does this seem like it's, it feels like it's pretty sufficient. I mean, I can do more, but I mean, I guess while the delay is sort of catching up, I want you to know, everybody that's that's going through these exercises and taking the course, I'm very, very happy for you to email me your exercises, your translations. I have probably had 7 or 8 people regularly emailing me their exercises. I can usually get them turned around to you with my notes or corrections, within a reasonable period of time. So I'm very happy to do that. And and Megan says we also have a Google group, which I sort of know what that means. Maybe Megan should come in here and explain it. I don't know, but anyhow, let me unshare what's going on here. Good. All right. So that is lesson 5, and that is the end of the first video stream of our video stream marathon today. We have another stream coming up in an hour with Dr. William Reed, which is going to be amazing, because if any of you have been wondering or thinking about how the first section of the Bible is put together, how the Old Testament was put together, Dr. Reed's the man. We sought him out, and of course he's a really good friend of mine, and Megan's too, obviously. But we went to school together, and he's teaching a course right now in what's called the Deuteronomistic History. But I asked him if he'd be willing to come on and do an interview to talk about how did the Bible get put together? What's the editing process like? And just some of the basics, so that everybody can kind of get a handle on it. And I really think it's going to be an exciting interview. It's going to be great. That's going to be happening at 12, so in a little over an hour. But then tonight we're going to have Skylar Fiction on for our book club, and because he and I have been doing these Bible study reading sort of things on his channel, where we read through. We've been reading through the book of Genesis and then kind of giving comments on it. I thought it would be nice for him to come on our channel, because we are going to be going through the Babylonian book of Job, essentially. It's called The Poem of the Righteous Sufferer in Akkadian Ludlow Baal Namaki. And it's going to be great. I thought it'd be really good for him and for us, obviously, to have him come on. I think it'll be a lot of fun. There'll be beer. or rum. I'm not sure which one, but no, I think it'll be really good. So that's going to start at 7:30 tonight, and Scholar Fiction will be here. So please come out for both of those streams. And let me just check the side chat here and make sure there's nothing else. Wildheart666 says we work too much. Perhaps. But you know what? You guys respond so well to the things that we do that it's worth it, you know? One more thing, I just want to give a quick update on our subscriber count. How does one do that? We are at 1272. We have gone up 272 subscribers in less than 2 weeks since we hit 1,000. You guys are incredible. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and end this. Thank you all very much for watching. Please email us digitalhammurabi@gmail.com if you have any questions about the Sumerian. I can see that Megan's been talking in the side chat about our Google group. Again, I'm not exactly sure what it is, but I know that if I need to do something with it, she's going to tell me to, so it'll work out really well. But until next time, resist poor scholarship. Always ask, how do you know that? Thanks.